Hello, Tom.
Hiya, Mickey.
Tell me about this new album.
God, the new album. Well, it's the first. It's the first thing I've completed for. Oh God, more years than I can remember. The last album I did would have been live at the Hotel Splendide, which was a kind of a blues album that I did in the early '90s. And since then, and then I got involved again with Michael and the Tubular Bells 2 and all that stuff, and we went to LA for 6 months and recorded all that with Trevor Horn and all that. And then I came back, and I was going to start a new project of my own then, but then Michael wanted me to do the Celtic Cross and Songs from the Planet, the Distant Earth or whatever they were, and another couple of. So I ended up doing about 4 albums for Michael in a row, and then I bought the ship, and so I spent the next 10 years fiddling about with a Minesweeper and getting it over to Ireland. So I spent since 2000 and something over here. I moved over here when I brought the ship over, and I thought at last I'll have time to actually start a new record, and but then it didn't happen like that because I can't remember what happened. But anyway, I started this album, The Secret Life of Angels, when I was living in Ballinamore in County Leitrim for just a little time, and the idea came to me. I was fishing down in one of the little rivers in Ballinamore at a lunchtime, and as you do when you're fishing, the great thing about fishing is it's like meditation. You can sit there watching a float. So I would find out where the fish were. I'd catch a few bream and a couple of roach, and then I'd look for a place where there weren't any fish, because the actual catching fish isn't the bit that I like about fishing. What I like about fishing is not catching the fish, and so you can watch the float, and you know that no fish is going to bite it, but just the watching the float takes you off into a little meditative state. And the angels thing started to come to me then, because to me the angels are, the church thinks that they exist, and various other religious orders thinks that they exist in one kind of way, with these, ethereal figures with big wings, and I started to wonder about that and look at it from a science, a kind of a scientific physics point of view, so I was musing about how big of a wing would you need to have to actually lift the weight of a person off the floor, and it would be a lot bigger than the angels are ever seen to be had. They had kind of nice, neat, aesthetic looking wings that weren't much bigger than their own height and a little bit wider. But actually I started doing a bit of maths about it, and I realised that you'd need wings about 30 feet across and the muscles for those to work those wings, you'd need to have a breastbone like a chicken that would be sticking. I mean, for an angel to work on the physical plane, it would need to look very, very nasty looking. I mean, it wouldn't be a pretty sight like the angels are kind of meant to be in all the Renaissance and pre-Raphaelite paintings. So they've got to be creatures of air, so they're kind of imaginary. So they're kind of, from that you go back to the idea that they're archetypes. They're part of our pre-science humanity. Couldn't explain things. They couldn't explain things like the sun coming up and the moon coming up. They had no idea that we were on a spinning ball walking around, stuck there by gravity. They saw the earth as flat, and so they had to explain all these things in their own heads and get over the fear of night and the fear of day and the fear of rain and the fear of thunder. All of these things must have been terrible when you were, before you understood what science was, to know what thunder was. It's bound to be a god, and what else could it be? It's scary,
Mm-hmm.
So angels came out of having to have a balance between the stark, awful fear of lightning and thunder and flood and tempest before you knew what they were all about, that they were actual results of the world spinning and the tides coming up and down was the moon dragging the water about. And I mean, there's people on the planet even today who don't believe that, that believe that God does all these things with some kind of computer, and they don't like the idea that the earth goes around the sun. They didn't like that until Galileo, and even he got into terrible trouble when he suggested that the earth goes around the sun, because the religion at that time said the sun went round the earth. So it was all very difficult. So the angels were kind of creatures that we made up ourselves. But they have all of the embodiments of what we aim to be, what we would like to be, how we would like to be able to fly, and how we would like to be able to influence the universe. And they also they guard us, they look after us, they look after this and they look after that. So I kind of accepted that the angels existed and exist. I mean, I know I've got an amazing guardian angel, by God. If I didn't have a guardian angel, I'd have been a dead man probably several hundred times over now, with the madness that I went through when I was a kid, riding motorbikes and even bicycles. I used to, coming home from school, I would grab hold of the thing on the bus and get dragged all over Castle Bar Hill in Ealing at as fast as the bus could go, which was then that's 40 mile an hour or 35, 40 mile an hour, and there's me hanging on to the pole that you get on, and the conductor saying "let go," and shouting their heads off at me. But you didn't care about things like that, and I should have been dead 1,000 times. So I've got a brilliant guardian angel. But then I thought, the thing about angels is that they're obviously not human, and they can obviously appear and disappear. So they're in that kind of space between existence and non-existence that now physicists are just starting to discover with the Higgs boson, and the fact that matter can choose to be matter or not matter. It can choose to be a vibration, or it can choose to be matter. So we've got to the point where science admits that there's shit happening in the vibrational area that they can't explain yet. And that's, to me, that's where the angels live. And they can come in and out of being visible or not, and they have a job to do, if you like. But what they don't have, they have this enormous sympathy for humanity, and they want to help everybody. Some of them, most of them. Some of them are a little bit, a bit like fairies, as good and as bad, even amongst angels. But the thing that they don't understand is the vulnerability of being physical, because they're not really physical, or they are, but in a very different sort of, very airy fairy light sort of way. They're creatures of light is how they're considered by hippies and spiritualists and people who are into all that. So they don't understand, if they've got a consciousness, but they don't understand what it's like to be human. And maybe the reason that they look after us is because they also are aware of the fact that we're mortal, and we're only in this physical state for a few years, which in cosmic time is the flick of an eyelid. But they're very, very interested. My premise for the album, for the record, is that they're fascinated by how it seems to be possible that a human being can be born, and one of the first things they learn is about death, because when you're a kid, well, if you're an Irish kid anyway, you know about death pretty quick, as I did. I mean, I was probably only, I don't know, just about toddling, and I was taken to wakes, and there was men standing up in coffins, and I had to come to terms with all that. And I mean, kids don't do that now because it's not politically correct, but of course and that's nonsense. Of course it is. But the fact remains that from a very early age, humans are aware of the fact that they're not there forever, and that your granddad's going to die, and your dad's going to die, and your mum's going to die, and your brother's going to die, and your sister, and your dog, and your parrot, and whatever it is that your cats, everything that's physical and you can pick up and cuddle is going to die. The angels are fascinated by the fact that we know that, and yet we still have this enormous, beautiful power to overcome that and not commit suicide and not go into a deep depression and think, oh my God, I'm going to be dead in 70 years. It's terrible. What can I do? Nothing, and we get over it. And not only do we get over it, but we do enormously, fantastically impossible things. And all we've got is this weak, fleshy body with opposable thumbs. And now we know how the universe works, and we know how to go into space, and we know how to kill millions with a stick, with a tube, with a hole in it, a gun, and bombs and aeroplanes. We've made all this in the fraction of time, cosmically, a few millionths of a second in cosmic time. We've come from hanging about in trees, eating bananas, to being able to destroy planets in the snap of a finger like that. And they're fascinated by that, and they're deeply envious, if that's probably not the right word, but they want to know what that's like. They want to know what it feels like to have to handle the fact that you're going to die. Within minutes of being born, you're going to die. And in between that, you've got to do as much as you possibly can for no apparent reason that they can't think, well, why, what motivates us? Why do we do this? Why do we want to discover? We've got this God-given curiosity that drives us to doing all this stuff. And so that's on the physical level. But what they're also fascinated by is that we create amazingly beautiful things, as well as all the nasty things. We can create paintings that make your heart bleed with poetry. We can write beautiful things by scrawling, making little marks on paper that are translatable, and people can speak them, and they make you cry because they're so beautiful. We can make music out of sounds by getting a box and stringing some strings on it. We can make music that is so beautiful that it makes you cry, or it makes you laugh, or it makes you dance. It gives joy for being alive, for being in this place where you know you're going to only be there for a tiny little short bit of time. And the angels are desperately impressed by this, and my idea is that they want to try and be like us just for a moment, just to experience it. So that's the premise of the album, and the music is about the angels taking on that sense of humanity, although that in itself is kind of impossible because they're things of air. But they can make. I've added to it. I've allowed them to become physical. So you can have the Archangel Raphael learning how to ride a bicycle. Why would he want to ride a bicycle? Only because he wants to experience what it's like. It's not that he can fly, so what the fuck would he want a bicycle for? But the idea of learning to ride a bicycle and falling off and working out how to balance on a bicycle is a fascinating idea to the Archangel Raphael. And in the same way, Gabriel, he wants to understand sadness, so he puts himself in a situation where he's just lost a loved one, or he's been deprived of the presence of God, or he's deprived of the presence of some other angel that he loves, in order to experience what the pain of bereavement is. And that's the be all and end all of it, really. And this part one, which is available on download and pre-order, you can pre-order it on whatever it is, Viral Discs and Downloads, and the website and the Facebook page, Viral Discs and Downloads, folks. This is part one. So I'm scratching the surface. I want to do 3 or 4, maybe as many albums as I can out of this, and getting deeper into it each time. I'm just starting to realise, and even this conversation I'm having now, is teaching me more about the next album. So I'm kind of coming to a point where I'm starting to get ready to start the next album, even though this one's only just out. I wrote a load of little tunes that I haven't got on this album that I can now revisit and expand, and to me it's very exciting. It's a kind of I don't know whether I'm going to have that much time. You never know when you're going to go, when the Reaper's going to tap you on the shoulder. So I want to try and get out at least half a dozen 40 odd minutes worth of work before I hang up my boots and go and live on a ropey old sailing boat somewhere. So we just see what happens. But don't forget, Viral Discs and Downloads. And it's available from the 18th of April to download, and the 25th of April you can get hard copies. And the hard copies look like that. Ooh! But they'll be in cardboard sleeves, a nice cardboard sleeve with a nice picture on it. And I hope if they sell a few that I'll be able to get the car taxed. Would be wonderful. Thank you, Mickey.
Thank you,
Bless
Tom.
you, sir.